Alright, legends, welcome back to Sceammeupbotty. We're getting into some of the classic Star Trek in this episode. This is Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 2, called Charlie X. And this one here, you get introduced to probably one of the most, would you say, sympathetic characters, even though he's comes across as highly dislikable in the episode. He's a very, very tragic character. We'll go with that. Really tragic character in the series. A young boy that the Enterprise transports across from a merchant vessel called the Antares. Charlie Evans, he's a sole survivor of a transport ship that crashed on the planet Thasos 14 years earlier. And he grew up there alone, stranded in the wreckage, learning how to talk from the ship's computer systems, which remained intact. Charlie is to be transported to the nearest relatives on the colony Alpha 5. Crew members aboard the Antares speak praises about Charlie, but seem pleased to see him removed from the ship. And he tells Dr. McCoy the crew of the Antares did not like him very much, and that all he wants is for people to take him in, like him for who he is. But despite his eagerness to please, Charlie becomes obnoxious, since his lack of upbringing has left him with no knowledge of social norms or control of his emotions. He latches on to Captain Kirk, sees him as a father figure, and he develops an infatuation for human Janice Rand. He demonstrates extraordinary powers of telepathy and matter transmutation. Though the crew initially fail to recognise the cause, Charlie meets Rand in the recreation room, where Mr. Spock plays the Vulcan Lorette. I want to call it a lute for some reason. But my notes are crap. They really are. And Lieutenant Uhura suddenly starts singing, and she does like a, at the beginning of this sequence, Spock, he's playing, and she starts to hum, and puts him off as playing. And this is one of these things that, she's like, I'm sorry, did I do it again? And Rand gives her a nod, keep doing it to him. They're messing with Spock, essentially, in this part. And her and Spock actually do like a duet, him playing and her singing. And it's really interesting in this sequence, because Spock, being the character that holds back his emotions, he shows a bit of enjoyment in this section of the episode, and he actually doesn't do a huge smile, but he's got like a small sort of grin on his face. But saying that, it's only episode 2 of season 1, and as we do know, the original Spock in the cage was not the Vulcan with the emotions held back. He was very, very forthright on his emotions. He seemed like a huge smile on his face in that episode. So, this is early days in the run, probably still coming to terms of what they wanted the character to be. But in this sequence, Uhura, the first song duet she does along with Spock, is about Spock. She's singing about him, sort of a thing. So when Charlie enters the room, she starts singing and directs her lyrics towards Charlie and who he is. Charlie is annoyed with being a subject of her performance, as well as with Rand paying more attention to the song than him, so he causes her to temporarily lose her voice and Spock's instrument to malfunction. When the starship Antares is nearly out of sensor range, it transmits a message to the Enterprise. The message is cut off before it can convey a warning. Scanners show the Antares has been reduced to debris. It explodes in space. So they were obviously trying to, as we discover later in the episode, Charlie has this ability to control everyone around him, and it makes more sense as we get through the episode as to the attitudes of the Antares captain whenever he was handing Charlie over. Kirk tries to teach Charlie martial arts, and Sam, Kirk's training partner, laughs at one of Charlie's falls, and Charlie makes him vanish. He uses his powers on him. So this is the first time for Kirk and the crew that we actually see the powers on display, what he can do. Shocked, Kirk calls for security guards to escort Charlie to his quarters, and Charlie makes all the phasers on the ship disappear, but ultimately yields to Kirk's order that he return to his quarters. Records show that Charlie's abilities are the same as those the Phasians had on the planet due to, like historical records. The Phasians are. It doesn't really cover it in much detail in the episode, but what you kind of take from it is that the planet was once inhabited, and that the Phasians actually either died off or went on to a higher consciousness, which we do find out at the end of the episode. But the medical examination McCoy conducted when Charlie came on board confirmed that he is human. He's not Phasian. He's got Phasian powers, but he's not a Phasian. Charlie admits he used his powers to remove a vital component from the Antares, which caused the destruction of it. Frustrated with the turn in his relationship with the crew, Charlie breaks out of his quarters and begins to use his powers on the crew. When Rand resists his romantic advances, he makes her disappear. There's a few things that he does to the crew in this episode. There's first time would have been fairly shocking whenever this first came out. Like he comes across a crew member in the corridor of the Enterprise, and she doesn't say much to him, but she just kind of looks at him, acknowledges that he's there, and he uses his powers and turns her into like a lizard. And as he's walking up the corridor, you hear this laughing, people having a good time in a room off the side of the corridor. You don't see the people themselves, but you do see their shadows on the wall of the corridor as he's passing by, and he hears the laughing. He screams at them like, "No laughing, no laughing," and the laughing automatically stops. And then this woman comes around the corner, like holding onto the wall, trying to find her way, and she's moaning him. And Charlie has made her entire face disappear, so it's just a head with this just skin on the front of it. So some fairly horrific moments, in a horror kind of way in this episode. Realizing Charlie's powers are too great to be controlled, Kirk opts to divert from Alpha 5 so as at least to keep Charlie away from a civilized world where he would wreak havoc. Charlie discovers Kirk's plans, takes full control of the Enterprise. Kirk speculating that controlling the Enterprise may sap Charlie's power. Kirk's orders all the ship's systems to be activated, and he attacks Charlie on the bridge. Though his hypnosis proves incorrect, it does distract Charlie from fleeing a Phasian ship that has been pursuing them. So he's known this for a while. There's a few things happening in the episode. There's a message trying to come through on the radio. I can see from the ship's instruments somebody's trying to broadcast into the Enterprise, but he can't hear what they're saying, and it's Charlie holding this message back the whole time. He loses control of the Enterprise. The helm comes back online. The Enterprise stops dead in space, and a Phasian ship approaches, and it's not a solid ship, and you just see this kind of like a hazy outline in space of like a ship, and then this face appears on the bridge of the Enterprise. And it's the Phasian commander says that his race gave Charlie his powers so that he could survive on their world. He also says that he's taken his form from millions of years ago so that he can communicate. So, the Phasians are still on the planet. It's still fully inhabited. They're just in another realm of existence. They're no longer in their corporeal forms, more or less. But he does say that the race gave Charlie these powers so that he could survive on their world. But these powers make him too dangerous to live among humans. And at the end of the episode, and it's a fairly heartbreaking end to this episode for the character of Charlie X, because you do begin to realise that, what he has done throughout the episode, it's all evil, bad stuff that he's done to the crew of the Enterprise, and he's also killed the entire crew of the Antares at the beginning of the episode. He's just an adolescent kid that is trying to come to terms with growing up and missing the things that he wants out of life, and he begs Kirk to not let the aliens have him, since the Phasians lack any physical form and capacity for love. He's like, he's there, he's on his own, he's surrounded with people, but he's 100%, like, they can't touch, they can't love, they don't have the emotions that he needs or he wants to have in his life, and he's begging, he doesn't want to leave. However, the Phasians reject Kirk's argument. Kirk takes a moment to, after everything that Charlie has done in this episode, he's killed this entire crew, he's messed with the Enterprise crew beyond belief, Kirk included. Kirk still has that moment where he's like, we could teach him not to use his powers, and actually stands up and defends Charlie at the end of the episode to try and give him a chance at a normal life. But the Phasians reject Kirk's argument that Charlie belongs with his own kind, and with the final echo and wail, Charlie's like, I want to stay. And Charlie is then transported away in human Rand, begins to cry at the end of the episode, because she was the character that, she basically became Charlie's first crush, his first love on the Enterprise, and she had to reject him and whatnot, and she was all devastated and heartbroken that she was going to have to be the person to do that to him. So even after everything, we still get this emotional response from both her and Captain Kirk about this kid that was just the victim of some really, really bad circumstances. But excellent episode. It has all the hallmarks of being a crap episode. Really, if you were to just sit down and kind of read over the quick synopsis that you would get of this episode, which basically says the Enterprise picks up an unstable 17-year-old who spent 14 years alone on a deserted planet and lacks the training and restraint to handle his superhuman mental powers wisely. You think to yourself, well, it's probably not going to be the best episode ever. And in all fairness, there's a heck of a lot more episodes in this series that are a hell of a lot better than this one, but this is actually a really, really good episode. Really well written, really well acted. That's class. Like original Star Trek. So good. So good. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Wanted to take a little bit extra time in this if I could, but time is running against me this evening, so that's going to have to do it for this episode, guys. I will talk to you next Tuesday with some newer Star Trek. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.